This winter, you can double your savings on any energy you don't use, but not just double the savings, you can earn about £2 a kilowatt hour for every bit of energy you don't use. For every little bit of energy you export, you'll earn £2 a kilowatt hour, and there's even some days where you'll get completely free electricity for certain hours of the day. This video, I'm going to be talking to you how the schemes work, who you can sign up to, because there's various schemes running, and most importantly, I've got some tips that I learned from last year, so you're not just sat in the dark. Now, several companies are running what's known as the DFS event. Now, the DFS event is not a sofa sale, so if you're after a new sofa and it's near Christmas and everyone's talking DFS event, it's not the same one. DFS event is Demand Flexibility Service, and it's run by the National Grid. Now, everyone thinks this is quite a new thing and it started last year. Demand flexibility services have been around for a very, very long time, but they used to be offered to basically systems like car factories or very large factories that use very large amounts of power. But now, because of smart meters, we can track individual people's usage, and these schemes will link up with large energy companies or large energy distribution companies to make people save power or export power. And not only will factories benefit from these export savings, but you yourself at your home can now benefit from these because of smart meters. Now, there's lots of companies that offer DFS, and DFS is basically a national grid scheme, so it can be from your energy company, it could be from maybe your battery company, or it could be from a third party. Now, a lot of people with solar, battery storage, etc. have received emails from their battery companies saying, take part in our scheme, sign up to our DFS event and we'll pay you this much for export and controlling your battery. Now, bear in mind that I had a friend sign up to a service last year, I won't name him, it's not fair, but he earned far less than what I was earning per kilowatt hour using Octopus, which is why I personally advise that you go for maybe one of the big brands like Octopus Energy. If you are going for one of the other smaller brands, make sure you read their terms and conditions on what they're paying per kilowatt hour, because not every single company are sharing the full amount of money that they're receiving, maybe from the national grid, or they're taking different approaches on how they pay you. So just make sure you read the terms and conditions about how that works. Now, if you're not an Octopus Energy customer and you want to sign up, then go to evnic.com/energy. Signing up to Octopus Energy, you get to split £100 with me on there. It might be too late for you to sign up for the DFS event though, if you're just about to become an Octopus customer, so maybe look at one of the alternative DFS providers that are available at the moment if you want to take part for this winter's DFS event. So what is DFS and how exactly does it work? Well, National Grid will see that there's unusually low generation. This is usually due to less wind or less stored power being available than normal, and it might mean the National Grid have to turn on a very expensive coal plant or fire up another gas turbine or various other means of power generation. Now, turning on these other generations, if they are cold or being paid to be on standby, can be very, very expensive. And because of this, the National Grid can say to you, reduce your usage and we will pay you for the reduction in usage, which saves us putting on a power plant. Now, you might go, how much does these reductions actually work? Do they make a dent to the National Grid? Well, to give you an idea, last winter, Octopus Energy customers alone, so this is not all the other schemes put together, but Octopus Energy were one of the largest schemes by quite a large mile. Octopus Energy customers over 13 sessions saved 2 gigawatt hours of power.
What the hell is a gigawatt?
Now, unlike last year's DFS event, there was no in-day adjustment. Now, very briefly, last year, in-day adjustment meant people were able to game the system by overusing power 2 hours before, which added weirdly to their savings based on the way the formula was working. This actually meant that some people would actually increase usage artificially to get paid more during DFS events. So what they've done this time is they've changed it, and Octopus Energy will be taking the 10 weekday previous average of your energy during the time when an event's run, apart from days where an event was run. So if you were reducing energy on one of those 10 previous days, that won't be counted. It will just be 10 previous weekdays that were counted that weren't part of a saving session. Now, if it falls on a weekend, which is very unlikely, they will be using the 4 weekend day average from the weekend data to get your average adjustment level, so they see what you've saved, and also, as we'll explain in a minute, what you've exported. Now, each session will pay differently. Some of them may pay the same, and some of them may pay less, and some of them may pay far more. Now, there's an Octopus Energy WhatsApp group you can join, which will alert you when Octopus Energy are getting a session saved in. Now, it's very important to note that some of the sessions may arrive very, very late notice, in which case being in the WhatsApp group does give you that first indication that a saving session will happen. Now, each one will pay different, like I said, but for the last session that was just run on the 16th of November 2023, it was £2.25 per kilowatt hour saved. So if you normally use 3 kilowatt hours of energy, but during the session you only use 2 kilowatt hours of energy, you would have been paid £2.25 for that 1 kilowatt hour reduction. Now this year you'll also be being paid for exported energy. Now it does get a little bit more complicated. If you're not with the same provider for your export, you might be wondering if you're going to get paid for the DFS export. So let me quickly explain. If you have an import and export meter that's on the same smart meter, then it doesn't matter that if you're with a different DFS provider. From the terms and conditions of everyone I've read, the way it sort of sets out is that you'll be paid by the DFS provider for any export that you generate, export more than normal. So if you don't normally export during one of these saving sessions, then you will be paid for any export on that and the savings. So let's just pretend that because you've got a battery, you normally use 0 kilowatt hours during a saving session. You don't normally export anything, so that's also 0. And you export during a saving session 1 kilowatt hour. Now your DFS provider, in my example here, is Octopus Energy, but it could be another company. It doesn't really matter who the energy you buy it off is for the DFS. If you've signed up to a DFS provider, it can be your energy company, it could be somebody else. But if you've exported 1 kilowatt hour, the DFS provider, in my example here, it would be Octopus. They would pay me for the 1 kilowatt hour of export. And then if you're with somebody else for your export seg, as in the actual payments you get for normal export, and let's say they normally pay 10p a kilowatt for that seg export, they will also pay you that 10p separately. So you'd earn from the DFS provider, my example Octopus, and you'd also earn from the normal export rate you'd get. So for example, £2.25 a kilowatt hour, I'd be paid for 1 kilowatt export, and then for 1 kilowatt export from my normal seg provider, I'd only earn 10p, so that'd be £2.25 plus 10p. Now reading the Octopus terms and conditions, Octopus will be running possibly their own saving sessions. That means that Octopus have put in their terms and conditions that separate from the national grid, they may also run their own private saving sessions. Now this could be for a couple of reasons, and for understanding that, I've done other videos about how the grid balancing in these systems work, but basically Octopus Energy might have a demand where they've not bought enough energy for a slot, and in which case they've asked you to reduce, and this is their own saving session data that they might do. They've also got it written in their terms and conditions that they may give away free electricity. Now the reason I think this might happen is, for example, let's say they have a plunge rate for normal agile customers, and that plunge rate is happening outside your normal off-peak hours. They may offer you some cheap electricity at that rate by giving it for free. So this could mean at Octopus Energy this year, you could charge the battery in your house for free, fill it up full for, say, for 10 kilowatts, and then the next day they could be paying you £2.25 to export it back to the grid. This is absolutely crazy. Now a couple of my energy saving tips were how to reduce energy during the saving sessions to do with how you live your life in the kitchen. Now for example, you could pre-cook your food the day before if you knew a saving session was going to take place the next day, and then warm it up in a microwave which uses less electricity than your oven. Now another method you could do is, if you normally have a weekend takeaway and you know a saving session is happening on a Thursday, maybe have your takeaway early so you're not using the oven during the saving session times. Or an expensive option, which will pay for itself, is maybe buy something like this Ninja food cooker that I've got here. Now this one has a food probe in it that can basically be put in the food and finish when the food is perfectly ready for however you like it. Now I have been really impressed with how fast this heats up. You don't have to preheat it, so that saves a bit of money there. But it also cooks food in rapid time. We cooked a whole chicken in one of these in 25 minutes. Now this is because the food space inside an air fryer is a lot smaller. Rather than heating a large, vast oven, you're heating a small metal tray inside the food system, inside the Ninja food cooker. And because of this, air fryers use a lot less electricity. Now, if you want the exact one I've got, I'm very, very impressed with it. There's a link down below in the description. Now, other stuff you can do is turn off devices with standby power, maybe even turn off your fridge freezer for maybe that hour saving session. It might have been using a little bit of power. Being turned off a fridge freezer is basically, as long as it's not being opened, is an insulated product. It's holding that cold air in. So as long as you're not opening it up all the time during a saving session, it will maintain the temperature in your fridge and freezer quite constantly for an hour being turned off. Just make sure you remember to turn it back on. Now, something else you could do, if you really, really wanted to get absolutely insane, you could turn off all your electricity in your house using your main fuse board inside your house and completely cut the power. However, if your wife, like me, owns a bat and an axe, that's probably not a good idea, but luckily for me, I have a home storage battery that I can force export from. Now, some people in forums I've been reading have been worried about them wearing their battery out and why they should support the national grid when they can't be bothered to build power stations. Well, precisely for the reasons why we have batteries and solar is we are the new power stations. Why should the national grid build power stations when they can ask people to lower demand and increase export to support the national grid if they're able to, and in turn get paid just as much as a power station would do? £2.25 is a huge amount. Now, there's going to be two people. You're going to be fitting batteries for two reasons. One, you've done it for green credentials to be greener, in which case there's nothing greener than exporting your green power or pre-stored power back to the national grid at £2.25, because they're stopping them turning on a coal plant or a dirty power plant somewhere. So it's about as green as you can get. Now, if you've done a battery and solar because you wanted to save money, well, again, £2.25 to be exported back to the grid is a stupidly high amount of money you're going to be paid. You can't import or use your own energy for that kind of saving. So if you installed your battery purely to save money, then the best way you can save money is export it, and it's also going to be within your warranty period. The faster you can get your payback within your warranty period, the better. So take the money. £2.25 is an insane amount of money. In fact, I've worked out if you export 4 kilowatt hours over 13 sessions, which was the amount of sessions that there were last year, you'd earn £117. Now, another little tip I've got might actually cause some arguments, but might be really beneficial towards your family unit. It will save electricity, but also give you some family time, which is turn off your router. It doesn't use a heck of a lot of electricity, but it does use a little bit. And if people have also got the phones plugged in during this time so they can use the phone on the internet, it will go against your entire house reduction list. Maybe play some cards over some torchlight for a bit. Talk to each other like a family. It might really help reduce your usage. But if you are thinking of getting solar and battery installed, check out this video. But if you want to reduce your heating this winter and you're still on a gas boiler, then maybe check out this video as well.